Hello everybody, today in the UK is the beginning of one of my favourite sporting events of the sporting year, the World Championship in snooker. Now, I appreciate for those of you who are not British, who don't live in the UK, or you might not have ever seen snooker. Anyway, I appreciate this is quite niche is what I'm saying, so you might not understand I'm wearing a waistcoat because the attire and so on and so forth, but it's one of my favourite sporting events, and I wanted to do a video today for that reason, because I'd heard again recently of Shaun Murphy, one of the most kind of popular celebrities, I suppose, in the world of snooker, commentates as well as playing, that kind of thing. He was originally known in the UK as a Christian, as a born-again Christian, no less. And in recent years, he's abandoned his faith, and the grief that is warrants a quick look at some of the things that have gone on to lead to this point where today he would talk in the way that he talks. And it's a commentary on the church. It's a spotlight once again on the role of the church and the role of biblical teachers, Bible teachers, centrally in what it means to be a Christian disciple. Let me pull this up. This is just some thoughts, some of the things that Shaun has said. Do a Google on Shaun. Shaun, as a young man in his 20s, won the World Championship in 2005. Jonathan Edwards, another well-known sporting great, who was the world record holder and world champion for the triple jump, Olympic record holder, I think, as well. I don't know if he still is. He abandoned his faith after a career in athletics, not training and not competing and performing on a Sunday. He then finished his career and walked away from the faith in 2007. So this kind of thing is not unheard of, but it warrants again a closer look. And this is some of the things that Shaun said. As a self-confessed Christian, born again, back in 2005. And then I'll show you a tweet that was as recent as 2008, but I think says quite a lot, not just about the situation that I'm talking about, but in terms of the church moving forwards, and incidentally about my new book, which will be out next week. So this is Shaun Murphy back in about 2005. I was brought up a Roman Catholic and only felt my faith came alive 6 years ago. But I started to backslide, and one day when I was talking about being a Christian in a TV interview, I thought, you hypocrite. I was not living how I was speaking, so I sorted it out. I am now further on than I ever was. Very, very sadly, Shaun was married to a lady called Claire. I think they met on a Christian dating website, like Mairi and I. And then a number of years after that, were divorced, and Shaun is now remarried. And again, this is so important in understanding that this was going on whilst Shaun was in an AOG church. An AOG is a Pentecostal denomination within the UK and further afield. Quite happily remarry, quite happily ignore what Christ said about what constitutes adultery, divorce, remarriage, and so on. This is Shaun in 2005, you hypocrite. I need to sort this out, he's thinking. And look what he says here in this bold bit about his church. And again, this is a church that would claim to be evangelical. That's really important. Evangelical, Bible-believing. A lot of sermons at our church are about encouraging. Anyone can achieve and everyone has got some great talent. I think this is a really important message. God doesn't want us to be mediocre in whatever we do. Can you imagine Jesus' emphasis being on our talents, not being mediocre in whatever we do? Is that the emphasis? Is that the emphasis of Jesus? Was that his emphasis that got him killed? I need not answer my own question. Look what he says at the end. I liked everything I heard. This is at church. I liked everything I heard. And it's given me something to believe in. It helps me focus more than anything. As Shaun reminds himself, one Christian magazine, Shaun was all over this secular news. He was also all over the Christian magazines. This is what they're saying. As Shaun reminds himself on a daily basis, quoting from the Bible, and in Mark 9, verse 23, all things are possible to him who believes. It sounds kosher, doesn't it? It sounds Christian and legit. But again, is this the emphasis of a Christian disciple? All things are possible. Of course that is true. But look what he's saying. He liked everything he heard. I liked everything I heard, and it's given me something to believe in. Does that sound like somebody who's heard, in the words of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, when Christ bids a man, he bids him come and die? Do we think that's poetic? Do we just think that's spiritual metaphor? If we understood the promise of Jesus at the end of John 15, which is that the world will despise us as they despise Jesus, I don't think Sean would be saying, I liked everything I heard. Let me show you this. This is a tweet from 2018, all right? So it's not this year or whatever, but it's still quite recent. This is Sean being asked by this chap here, Wee Georgie, do you still have your Christian faith? #ask Sean. Sean replies, no, I've moved away from all religions now. As far as I can tell, they're usually at the root of most problems in the world. I think he's kind of partially quoting Jesus' words about the love of money is the root of all evil. Not money, the love of money. And then look what Wee Georgie says. That's money, I think. Thanks, Sean. God bless. Don't worry about the fact that you just walked away from the only one who can possibly save you. God bless. God bless. And then Sean says, certainly seems to be a lot of people around the world arguing over something we have no proof of. Weird. This is somebody who was describing himself as a born-again Christian, speaking like this. After 10 years in whatever church it was, an AOG church or a church like that. The kind of church that emphasizes the importance of our talents, being encouraging, having fun. A friend of mine, it still is a friend, well, he's not an enemy, somebody that I used to live with and do like, he leads a church in the north of England. One of their values is having fun. Having fun. You know, no, this is what happens. This is the way that people who think they're born again or declare that they're born again speak years after being in a church that doesn't teach the Bible properly. Sean's saying, certainly seems to be a lot of people around the world arguing over something we have no proof of. Weird, as he says, weird. We have no proof of. What did Nicodemus think when Jesus came to him when Nicodemus came to Jesus under the cover of night in John 3? Did Nicodemus say to Jesus, where's the proof, Jesus? Give me the proof and I'll believe you. What did Jesus say to him? Read the chapter. Sean should read the chapter afresh. I pray that he reads the chapter afresh. This is what it means to be born again. What's weird is people proclaiming that they're born again and then not understanding what it means to be born again. What's weird is a church that doesn't teach front and center the cost of discipleship. Gratefully taking the large tithes and offerings from their celebrity congregants, but don't teach the Bible in the way that they should. Look what Wee Georgie replies to Sean. The extremists, any religion, are the issue, I think, Sean. Anyone who thinks it's their way or no way, surely God, if there is one, I believe that there is, can't be like that. Your thoughts of God are too human, sir. Luther would say to Erasmus, and Luther would say to Wee Georgie, and Luther would say to Sean Murphy. Your thoughts of God are too human. Surely there can't be, surely God wouldn't be claiming a monopoly on the truth if there, I think there's a God, I believe there's a God, but surely he wouldn't claim a monopoly on the truth. Well, let me tell you what's weird, Sean, is not understanding that is precisely what Jesus did. That is precisely who God is. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. So Wee Georgie, are you a Christian? Are you born again? Sean, are you born again? I believe if you are born again, you are born again. You can't be unborn again. But the question is, were you born again? Did you ever understand the gospel? Did you ever understand the words of Jesus Christ like Nicodemus did under the cover of night? Did the church ever teach the Bible so as to produce a disciple. And this is the final thing. Look what it said. Look what Georgie, look at the language he's using. The extremists, any religion, because as my book will explain next week, there are extremists in multiple places. There are radicals who are counterfeit, and there are radicals who are not counterfeit. As Georgie insightfully notes, the extremists are the issue, I think. Anyone who thinks it's their way or no way, surely can't be like that. That's what it means to be a born-again Christian. An extremist or a radical is somebody who understands the claims that Jesus made about himself, and therefore the claims that he made on behalf of those who would be born again, those who would be in his fold, is that there would be a despising and a hating from the world. Such is our union and oneness with Jesus himself. If you're in a church and you're liking everything you're hearing, if you're hearing about just being an overcomer, just being encouraged, just making the most of your talents, no reference whatsoever to the glory of God, the reason that we're on the planet, the reason that we exist, I'd encourage you to flee. I'd encourage you to read my book so you'd have a solid biblical understanding as to why you should flee and why you should repent and why you should seek God. I believe that if you're born again, you are born again. But the issue here for me is, was Sean ever born again? Or was he just in a church that purports to be a born-again evangelical church and actually doesn't raise disciples to even understand that, and then broadcast their false counterfeit being born again to a watching world?